Welcome to Gone Fishing, a show diving into the cybersecurity threats that surround our highly connected lives. Every human is different. Every person has unique vulnerabilities that expose them to potentially successful social engineering. On this show, we'll discuss human vulnerability and how it relates to unique individuals. I'm Connor Swalm, CEO of FinSecurity, and welcome to Gone Fishing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gone Fishing. I'm your host, Connor, CEO at Fen, and I am joined once again by not only a great friend of mine, the CEO of OIT, and also founder of MSP Media Network, Ray Orsini. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You're just doing good?
If I was any better, I'd be a twin.
If you were a triplet, I might believe you.
Got to steal your line. I mean, when in Rome, right?
When in Rome. For those who are listening or watching and don't know what the MSP Media Network is, what is the MSP Media Network?
So I'm a longtime tech TV fan back in the day. The Twit Network, I still watch it to this day. And while regular IT is good for like the general masses, MSP life is very different. Anybody who's worked corporate in MSP knows that MSP life is very, very different. And I wanted to bring a media network geared with shows and content just for MSPs. 100% of it's for MSPs. And just like MSPs are, let's call us like Shrek. We're like onions, right? We're not just about tech. We're about other stuff. We have other important things. And, whether it's eating grubs or, reading books, like our show Bits and Books, hosted by Marnie Stockman. It's the only MSP book club I'm aware of, or Tech Bar, which we had last night, or MSP Dispatch, where we cover news all week long for the MSPs. But the goal is to have a 24/7 network just for content for MSPs.
That makes a lot of sense. What prompted your decision to start this, other than you're looking, you see gaps, you see maybe tech news, but you don't see MSP specific news? What prompted you to start it?
There's lots of content out there, right? Bradley Gross has his Bradcast, Gone Fishing, Marvin B has his pod. There's really good podcasts out there. Paco and Rick, right? MSP Unplugged. There's really good podcasts out there. The problem is discoverability. Unless somebody says, go check this out, or, as vendors, we get to put it out in newsletters to thousands and tens of thousands of MSPs, but still, they're not always looking at those things. And but I've seen 1,000 threads, right? As a moderator of our MSP, I've seen it over and over. What podcasts do you listen to? Where do you go to listen? What shows do you listen to? And realistically, in our world, and when I say ours, I mean in the MSP world, some people prefer YouTube. Some people prefer audio podcasts. Some people prefer video. Traditionally, nobody would watch video in podcast form up until recent years. Nowadays, that's the norm. So we're on TikTok. Yes, this is where Slagle and all the security people say, how can you TikTok? And YouTube Shorts, which is just TikTok 6 weeks later, and YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. The idea is to have it everywhere, so MSPs can get it anywhere they want. And I know that with the discoverability problem, I wanted to address it. And this way, we're bringing in shows that are not just MMN originals. We're also going to be syndicating other shows, so you can have a central point. And plus, we'll have the Roku channel later next year. You'll have a central point. You just watch all of the great stuff.
That's awesome. Other than the MSP Dispatch, where you talk about news and things that might impact the industry, can you give the folks an idea of what are some of the things, what are some of the shows, what are some of the regular themes that you touch on?
Yeah. So like you said, we have Dispatch Tuesdays and Fridays, and then we also at 10 o'clock, and then we also have it shorts going throughout the week with individual stories. We have the Tech Bar, which is basically Johnny Carson late night, but for MSPs. We don't actually talk tech. We just drink and talk a lot of trash. You've been on
you times. Do the drinking, and Super Cousin Danny does the trash talking.
Yes, and it works out. It works out well. And we play some games and have a good time. And we're going to do it again at IT Nation next week, or the week of the 5th. Whatchamacallit. We have Bits and Books with Marty Stockman and MSP Book Club. We have 38 at 38. So Aaron Bolton talking about the 38 jobs he's had as his 38 years of life, and even though he's not 38 anymore, but and interviewing guests and how the hell did you get here and all the funny stories along the way. We have AI Roundup, which is 15 minutes of AI news for MSPs every week. Quick, digestible, just get it in, go. We have Partner First, where we cover industry leaders, subject matter experts, vendors of note for MSPs who you should be watching. And we just covered Pitch It. Did the last round we've been interviewing the contestants all year long, and just did the finalist round in preparation for Pitch It at IT Nation Connect.
Awesome. Yeah, for those of you listening who don't know what Pitch It is, it's a program run by ConnectWise to select up-and-coming MSP-focused vendors for ConnectWise to create relationships with. Pretty cool stuff, for sure. Why do you think there's this gap of, creating anyone can go create content, creating good content that people actually like to digest in any way they'd like is difficult? Where do you think this gap specifically for the MSP space that I've seen comes from?
So that's the other half of MSP Media Network. The front facing is the content network that we're building for MSPs. On the back of the house, what we're doing is we're providing production services to MSPs and vendors. Like you said, anybody can jump on Zoom. Anybody can jump on Riverside, Restream, StreamYard. There's a million options out there. It's not unique. Anchor FM. Anybody could start a podcast. It's modestly complex, but it's not impossible at all. Especially if you're doing audio only. But it's one thing to get content out. Right now, we're in a content-rich society. You literally can't turn around without getting inundated with pop-up videos or autoplay ads or, stuff along the side, or you're watching videos, right? And some people still prefer long form, right? They'll watch an hour, 2-hour show or whatever. Some people prefer quick 5-minute or 30-second hits. And so when creating content, you have to keep all that in mind. It's not easy to just say, I'm going to go be a talking head for an hour. You have to have context. You have to have content. You have to know audience. You have to be able to keep them engaged, give them things, some call to action. Why am I going to attend? What am I going to get when I leave? What am I going to walk away with? Besides the production value, right? So we're using Stage Timer right now. That's something I had showed Jamie that we use for all our shows to keep pacing. We create show notes. We create segments. We workshop thumbnails. We workshop audience outreach and potential guests and why the guests are going to be on. There's a lot to consider. It is far more, we're treating it as a media network, far more than just creating a bunch of videos, and teaching MSPs and the vendors in the space how to do it. Because let's be honest, all of us, myself included, put out a ton of content for MSPs. Not all of it's great. Lord knows I've had plenty of mine that have been swing and a miss. And that takes a lot of experience to learn how to do it right. So we're taking all of without exaggeration, I probably have a couple thousand events under my belt. We're taking that, and I have a group of amazing people working with me, and we're bringing that into the space so that vendors and MSPs can succeed alike. And it's all about supporting the community.
Community is one of the first things I recognized when I started diving into this industry is how important the community is. And actually, we got started by Michael Riggs, a person, I don't believe we've had him on the podcast, but I'll get him on one day, introduced me to Kyle Spooner, who is somebody we had on this podcast who was one of the admins at MSP Geek. And then instantaneously, I was thrown into the Discord, the Slack community, knew which events I should be at, and getting roped into things that I had no idea existed. But it was just all about having people meet each other and be friendly. And we're all in this fight together against the unnamed foe that is hackers.
So absolutely.
Can be lonely.
No, and then suddenly fast forward, you're with me at 2 a.m, closing out a bar, walking the last MSPs out of Ride a Boom, but fun stuff.
Watching you play chess at 4 a.m. in the hotel lobby and yell at people
winning.
for not joining. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And winning at 4 a.m. So poor Josh. I think I got him twice. But yeah, no, it was, but the community is such a big deal, right? Like I said all the time, our MSP was around when I started my MSP. I started my MSP in 2009. Our MSP was founded in 2011, I want to say. It predates even MSP Geek by a little bit. And even with that said, I didn't know about it when I first started. I didn't know about MSP Geek when I first started. So I was very much figuring it out myself. Now I had the benefit of being a serial entrepreneur. My MSP was my 7th business. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I had that benefit on the business side. But on the MSP side, honestly, I was making it up as I went. Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't. I didn't have those resources. I didn't find them till, like, I want to say 2012, 2013, is when I started realizing communities. And I actually changed vendors because they had a stronger community at the time. And I picked a new PSA and RMM platform specifically because of that. And I say now, like, I look at MSPs today, you can get any answer for any question you have about your business. I promise you it's been asked and answered at least 20 times on our MSP alone.
Yeah.
Forget MSP Geek, forget MRU, IT Pool Party, Tech Tribe, all the Facebook groups. There's a million resources out there. You can get your stuff. And if I would have done that, it would have taken me a lot less time to get to my first million, for sure, on the MSP side.
I always tell MSPs, and I'll tell vendors, if you're ever listening and you're on the vendor side of the house in this industry, go to Reddit and search for the name. If you have a demo or if you have a conversation scheduled with any of your vendors or any prospective vendor, keyword search in r/MSP, r/sysadmin, the vendor, and see what people are anonymously saying about that client now, or that potential relationship. I will say, sometimes Reddit brings out the worst in everybody. So take it with a grain of salt. But,
it can be a dumpster fire. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you see people dogpiling on a vendor because they treated somebody just egregiously, that's probably something, it's a piece of information you'd like to have before you end up talking.
But that's really standard fare for anywhere on the internet, right? Like, anything you do on the internet, you have to take the advice you get or the research you see with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care if that's Facebook medicine or web, and then Facebook medicine being anybody's cousin or uncle that knows researched a little bit, or WebMD. It doesn't matter. It's the data still needs to be qualified. Yes, like you said, being anonymous does invite a certain kind of personality when people are feeling salty, but the data's still there. And at minimum, you can ask the vendor, okay, but I see complaints about this, this, and this. How are you guys addressing that? How am I not going to have that problem?
Yeah.
And if it's a good vendor, they'll answer. And you might scare a few BDRs, but at least force them to go get the right answer from the right person.
You're right. Advice I always give to MSPs, whether they're existing partners or potential partners, or they're not even ever going to evaluate us, I always say, make sure you have two things in order. Get your acceptance criteria in order. Know what you want. If you can't tell them what you want, the vendor is going to tell you what they have. So that's the first thing, and those might not align. The second is ask them to be transparent about their own security practices and how guarded they're going to be about the relationship they have with you in a world of, super oversight and third-party risk, and the when not if mentality of breaches occurring. Lack of transparency is the enemy to progress. And so if you're working with a vendor, they're not willing to give you the results of a security audit they did or answer a questionnaire with any amount of authenticities, that's a big red flag that you should be looking 100%. The other way.
Yep. Yeah. My BS meter is always pretty high to begin with. So, I'm always looking for stuff like that. But, one of the reasons I love community is I had a vendor, I'm not going to name names, but I had a vendor in my space before I decided to start hosting my own voice, where we would have issues and they would come back and say, no, it's just you. There's nobody else affected. It's just you. At the time, I had a LinkedIn group with other resellers of the same platform, and we'd check against each other. And, we'd find the BS and call the vendor on their BS. I'm not saying it's always negative. It's always combative. That's not the point. The point is, as a gut check, as getting other information, getting additional data points, you're not going to find a better resource than the community. Like, that just doesn't exist. And even on the vendor side, we have our own vendor Slack. We do the same thing. We talk to each other and learn from each other. That's one of the things I think MSPs probably have it better than any other industry I've been a part of, as far as collaboration and communication and community.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that actually I touched on in a previous episode with Alex Farling, and it was Jason Slagle. So for those of you who don't know, Jason Slagle's no stranger to calling out vendors, but also, like, the redeeming quality is if they do the right thing and the right response, if they're transparent, if they're open, if they're honest, if they admit where their faults lie and then put a path forward to change that, it's like, he'll be the first to say, that's the right thing to do, and I'm very glad you did that. So it's like a it's not all of a negative thing. The core is the transparency. And if you're, not to quote Gary Vee, he's like, all the internet did was make us realize how bad most people are or how horrible most people are. It's like, it didn't make our lives worse.
Yeah.
It just opened our eyes up to, wow, these people over here are not that great. And that's what transparency is all about. It's just, who are you actually in business with? Who are you enlisting into your tech stack to help defend you and your clients? That's a really important relationship.
And every once in a while, if you haven't screwed up too much, you'll get a nice testimonial from Slagle on your website that'll say, they haven't pissed me off yet. So if anybody doesn't know what I'm referring to, go check out the roost.io page. That is one of his testimonials there. So
that is the crowning jewel of the MSP industry. It is that review from Jason. For folks who want to learn more about you, Ray, for folks who want to learn more about MMN or any of the various shows, where would you suggest they go to find you?
Easiest place, youtube.com/MSP Media Network or mspmedia.tv on the interwebs. And it's exactly that on all the podcatchers. Just search for MSP Media Network. And if you like the individual shows, you can subscribe to individual, or we have roll-ups of video and audio of all our shows, or individual video and audio for each of the feeds. So get as much or as little as you want. But we have some for everybody. And if you want a show, ask me. Let me know. I'm always looking for content and creators.
Awesome. For everyone listening or watching, we'll have links down in the show notes for you so that you can reach out to Ray. You can reach out to MMN, and you can definitely hop in the comments and shoot some fire from the hip, from the rafters at Ray himself, if you prefer. So, Ray, thanks so much for joining me today. This was a blast chatting with you.
Oh, thank you, dude. I appreciate you.
Anytime. For those of you listening, watching, this was Gone Fishing. I'm your host, Connor. We were joined by Ray Orsini. Yeah, I'm reeling you in. You've been caught. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Fishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, FinSecurity, at finsec.io. That's PHINSEC.io. Or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.